Hello and welcome to Gundog Nation. This is Kenneth Witt, and I'm coming to you from Texas. I want you to know that Gundog Nation is more than just a podcast. It's a movement to unite those who want us to watch a well-trained dog do what it's bred to do. Also, we are set out to try to encourage youth to get encouraged in the sport of gun dogs, whether it's hunting, competition, trials, hunt tests, all the above. This is a community of people that are united to preserve our heritage of gun dog ownership and also to be better gun dog owners. So if you'll stay tuned to all of our episodes, we're going to have people on here to educate you about training, about nutrition, health, anything that can make you a better gun dog owner. It's my pleasure to welcome our listeners, and please join our community. All right, welcome to Gundog Nation. It's my privilege and honor to have a good friend of mine that I think I met probably back in late 2015 over the phone first before I went there in person. But this guy's no stranger in the industry, and I don't know that we can even talk about all the hats that he wears, but we'll talk about the biggest hat he wears, and that's Southern Oak Kennels. But let me introduce Barton Ramsey. And Barton, go ahead and you're much more well known than me, but tell everybody who you are that may not know.
Man, I'm happy to be chatting with you. And my name's Barton Ramsey. Grew up here in Mississippi. I do wear a lot of hats. A husband of 16 years, father of 3. Southern Oak Kennels is sort of my first kid. That was been going on for about 12 years now. And then also one of the co-founders of Cornerstone Gundog Academy, along with Josh, who you had on recently, and Keith Parvin, father and son duo. Just in general, waterfowl and retriever enthusiasts, and then sort of a jack of several trades, master of very few, maybe.
I think that's not describe me, but on a smaller scale, physically smaller scale. Barton, how tall are you? Like 6'7" or something?
I'm 6'5". Yeah.
Okay, maybe you just look that much to me. And then your cousin Stone, he's not no shorty either. What's he, about 6'4"?
He's 6'4", and his dad's 6'7".
Jeez.
And I lived with them when I was in college, and Stone was in high school. And so we used to have like these situations where like Jehovah's Witnesses would come knock on the door, and we would all 3 come out on the porch. Of course, we're all really nice. And my uncle and I both had seminary degrees, and we're talking to these guys about the Bible, but they're all, 5'8", 5'10", and you got a 6'4", 6'5", and 6'7" dude sitting there. It was had to be a little intimidating. So it's a fun little group. My dad's side of the family is all a bunch of really tall guys.
Well, Stone, he sure is a humble guy too. I've been going over there with him. He trained a dog I bought from you guys that I absolutely love that dog. We'll talk about it a little bit, but he's so humble. I didn't know anything about his background until you told me at the Cornerstone retreat. I was like about his football, his Division I schools, and anyway, yeah. I digress. But he's a great guy. All y'all, I'm just a big fan of. But Barton, I guess the way I found you, I think, in the audience I'm trying to attract, or that I'm trying to speak to, is people that, are gun dog enthusiasts, not necessarily just retrievers. But that's what we're going to talk about today is retrievers. But, I reached out to you looking for a dog to do antler shed hunting. And you were brutally honest. This was a long time ago. You're like, man, it's not really my gig. I don't know a whole lot about it. But here's what these dogs do. And I don't know, I probably had 2 or 3. Then I ended up buying a Pace from you who's still alive, one of the best dogs I've ever owned. My ex-wife has, but he was divorced. But it was friendly. She has him now, but he's retired. But the dogs I got were just exceptional. I couldn't get over it, and I was referred to you by Carly Farron at Northwoods, and she's the one that told me about you. And your dogs, and man, I've just over the years I've had the best dogs I've ever owned have come from there. And what I think's unique about you is that you have some kind of, I don't know how to describe it, ability to place the right dog with the right owner. And tell me how you do that. I mean, you've always done that with me, and it's been perfect every time. Man,
there is definitely an aspect of luck involved, for sure. I say that luck in the way of let's maybe like cards. Like I'm trying my best to stack the deck in your favor. Through genetics, through health testing, through all the things that we try to preemptively cover, and then picking the parents really I've talked about this several times. I think you and I've talked about it. I'm definitely not as keen on picking a puppy as I am on picking the right litter for somebody, and trying to dive deep into the parents, what's behind the parents, and are there any aspects of this pedigree that continuously pop up? So there are some behaviors that, I mean, and you don't always get it right. I mean, I can think of a dog that we trained last year for a client, and the dog was hot. I mean, really hot. And Don sent me a video of the dog and said, I want you to guess what litter this dog is from. I guessed 3 or 4 litters, and he was like, no, it's Cedar and Pep, which I know her name is Pep, but she was a very calm, docile dog. Cedar's very level-headed. This dog was a Ferrari. I never would have guessed that, right? That's an outlier. But for the most part, you can look and say, okay, Moose in general, his puppies have these characteristics. This particular mom, in general, we've seen a few of her litters. We've usually seen litters from either her half siblings or one of her parents. And you get this general idea of a lineage and what comes from that. And in particular, when you see these dogs, my dogs are all British Labs. So when you see them work in the UK and you know the personalities of the people who train them, that's a huge part of it for me. Then you can kind of know, okay, well, Ken, he kind of likes this in a dog. And, you know, your best dog you ever had is not going to be necessarily the best dog someone else has ever had. But I know I kind of get an idea what you're asking for. And then when you combine that with just in general trying to breed smart dogs who are adaptable and trainable, you can usually get pretty close to hitting the bullseye.
And we just mentioned this before we started, but one thing too, Barton, is that you're not just buying random dogs that you're looking at a title from across the ocean. You go to the UK, you go to the trials, you know the breeders, you know the handlers, you see these dogs work over there, and then you make decisions based on that. Correct?
Yeah.
Or is it expand on that? Maybe. Okay.
I started importing in 2000. Man, I would like to say 2012 or maybe 13. I bought 2 bitches from Keith Matthews at Copper Birch. And this was like so much of how it's all worked out has just been timing, like the Lord's timing in my life and getting involved at a point when you could. And there weren't so many others attempting to do it or doing it. Most of the guys that were importing at that point were significantly older than I was. So social media was like this place you could build a relationship with somebody and then get to know the dogs they had. But at that time, it was never a place where somebody was posting, hey, here's some dogs for sale, as far as people in the UK. It was more or less, here's a video of this dog. Hey, that's really nice. I'd like to buy something like that. Well, let me see what I can find for you. So I made a few friends over there. Fast forward a few years, I made a very good friend in Ireland whose name is Sean. And he and I mean, he was at my house. We watched dogs work here in America. He's stayed with us. And, he really was the first one who had a tight grasp on the type of dog that we needed and I liked here. And that was so helpful. I can't tell you how many times Sean would say, hey, I'm going to look at this dog, potential stud dog, or something you might just want to sell. I'll let you know how it goes. And 6 hours later, I get a text, garbage. That was the dog was not what it was advertised. Well, I know for a fact so many of those dogs within 6 weeks were coming to America. I saw them. I saw them posted on Facebook. And no offense to the guys that bought them, but it was just like, hey, I know that dog is socially terrified, or that dog doesn't like water, or that dog's got a bird chomping problem. There's all these things that, you can't know until you have somebody experiencing it firsthand. And then I started going over there in 2015. And I've really gone every year except for I missed a couple during COVID. Travel was restricted, but That's been so fun. So fun to go over there and see the dogs and meet people and develop relationships that lead to bringing over what I would consider to be some of the best pedigrees and dogs that are in America as far as British lines go. That I don't think that happens off of just online. I'm not saying you have to necessarily go there to be successful, but for me, it's what makes the most sense to say, hey, I'll give you a great example. Your podcast will be the first place that this news is public. I'm not going to say the name yet. Thursday, I'm picking up a new stud dog. Bought the dog. Really have a client who is going to have this dog hunting with him, mostly in flooded timber. And the client wanted, is a good friend of mine. He and the guy he hunts with, they wanted a dog that was next level, highest level is what they wanted. And I knew of a dog that was not necessarily for sale, but could be bought. And we committed to purchasing this dog. It's a 4-year-old. He's a field trial champion. He was more than double qualified for the IGL last year. And I'm sending videos of the dog. I'm sending photos of the dog. And the best part was, but the question to me was, but don't you think they could just keep filming him until he did something right? How is he all the time? And I was able to say, well, I actually shot birds at a 2-day stake last year in Scotland on some very difficult ground. And this dog won the trial. So I was able to see this dog retrieve for 2 days and absolutely kill it. Right. And then he went and won multiple trials last year. So through that knowledge, somebody could probably go find out what dog it is. However, I don't know anyone that really wants to do that research, and he'll be here Thursday. We'll make a big announcement, but like my firsthand knowledge of the dog is what makes me so confident that hey, I know the guy that trained him. I know 8 or 9 people who judged him that I can text and say, hey, what'd you see? And they're all like, that's a nice dog. So you don't get that over just videos and Facebook posts.
That's something else. Well, that's why, when I can honestly say for anyone listening, that when I buy from Southern Oaks, I buy with confidence. I never, ever doubt that I'm not going to be satisfied. And so far, not since, how many years is that? 7, 8? That's what's happened. Barton, I was thinking when you and I decided, and I knew you were busy and I was just so happy to get you on here, but I was like, University of Mississippi or Mississippi State, if they're listening, should have you come and teach at an MBA course on how to start a business, because what you have done is really create an empire. And I mean that in all respect. It's impressive, but you did it with integrity and honesty and morals, and which I think is why it's flourished. But it's amazing what you've done. And we'll dive into it a little later, but you've got other ventures that we'll talk about too. But I was just thinking, man, you're an educated man, and you can go to college and get an MBA, which I don't think you have. You have a college degree, I know. But what you did, an MBA they don't teach that stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, and a lot of trial and error, that's for sure. And the social media part's the highlight reel, right? Any business owner out there know there's times where you're on top of the world, and there's times where you're like, man, I may just have to go get a job at FedEx or something.
Yeah. And, I know with success like yours, Barton, that, there's so much social media negativity, and you seem to deal with that so well. And we spoke, I'm trying not to talk about it. So it's so hard because I'm a talker. So we spoke right before we started recording, and I was like, Barton, I actually realized I've kind of plagiarized something that you say in all your podcasts, because I always listen to your podcast, sometimes several times. And you're trying to build bridges, because, I've heard you talk before about the divisions of what kind of camo you wear and stuff, which I didn't realize that was a thing, but I'm an older guy and I don't get into that stuff. But,
sure.
And you're always doing that and reaching out to people that maybe not believe the way you do about dog training or what kind of dog, American Lab versus British Lab. You've got an excellent podcast I highly suggest that Barton does on the lab with Chris Rudd. And it's so in depth, I listened to it twice. But it was I mean, I thought I knew a lot, and you guys just overwhelmed me with knowledge, and it was so great. But anyway, sorry about that, Barton. I digress. But anyway, building bridges is just something that you preach a lot. And actually, you are an associate pastor, so I can use that word in the right sense. And but I love that, and that's what I'm trying to do. The difference that what I do is I'm just, first of all, I don't proclaim to be a training expert by any means, and we'll get into Barton's training philosophy here in a second too. I'm just a guy that wants to pick smart people like you and learn from them, and let our listeners learn. So now, Barton, I know when you started, you were training heavily, and you tell me about that. I know that's evolved now. You're kind of in a CEO type role now, but talk about that a little bit.
Man, I started training. I did my first episode of The Lab with my buddy Mark Harefield, who was a mentor to me. He taught me really the ins and outs of retriever training, Springer Spaniel training, was more upland stuff, and then non-slip retriever training. And I didn't have any I didn't really have a loyalty toward a side or anything like that in retriever training. I just did what I thought made the most sense to me and what I liked. And that was really a less pressure, non-compulsion style of training. And still used pressure and punishment, definitely not positive reinforcement only. That's a gross mischaracterization. We use slip leads, and I'm not anti e-collar or any of that stuff. I think with the podcast with Chris Rudd, I think we cleared that up. That was a fun one. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yes.
That's probably the most, I've had a lot of people from the UK text me about that one. That's probably the most in the weeds that I've gotten on that, which Chris is a phenomenal human and trainer. So that made it a lot easier. And I did one with Bob Evans too. That was, I think, really fun.
Yes.
That one was more or less on force fetch. But yeah, I started training and I would say 2011 to 2019 or 20, I had a string of dogs, that were client dogs at all times. And that would range from 4 to 6 dogs when I was just starting out, and toward the end of that. But in the height of building Southern Oak Kennels, I might have anywhere from 10 to, I think the most I ever had was 17. And I had no help. I had a guy that helped me at the kennels, but I didn't have an associate trainer or anything like that. It's just me. And if you're going to be a professional dog trainer, and pro trainers, they all understand this. And Stone is a great example. So Stone lived with me to learn to train dogs. I only had a handful of client dogs. He had some client dogs that he was working underneath me, and he learned a lot, right? He was there for 2 years, and then he goes out on his own. And the first year there were a lot of, there's no offense to Stone, but there were a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of dogs that was like, hey, you need to go give those people an extra month for free to go back and redo some of this stuff that's been kind of missed or whatever. It's a learning experience. But then you fast forward a couple of years and you see dogs he's training, like, that's a nice dog. It's really nice. How do you get there so fast? Well, when you're every day training anywhere from 8 to 14 dogs, when you think about it, how many retrievers do you have right now? I know you don't have, you got your pup from us is up hunting, which is awesome. Yeah. But like in the middle of the spring, Ken, you might have 2, 3, maybe 4 retrievers.
Max, yeah.
Max, right?
Usually.
And most people have 1 or 2?
Yes. So it's usually what I have usually.
So to get to 50 training sessions, that's going to take you about a month, right? Whereas someone like Stone or someone like when I started out, to get to 50 training sessions, that was in about 3 days, right? So it's such a progressive learning curve because you're standing over a wider variety of personalities, of styles of learning. Now we're doing mostly British dogs and they are similar. However, they're all different, right? So you're like, well, this one, I can't work just like that one. And so and you are experiencing that in a much faster pace. And so to be in that position was really fun for me to train these dogs. Mark Harefield trusted me with some of his client dogs at the beginning, and I learned so quickly, just different, through mistakes, through books, through DVDs, through Mark, through going to hunt tests and watching people and watching dogs and figuring out how people did things, through especially going to the UK and training with some of my friends over there that I had made and watching them and learning their drills. It was fun to learn. I did that for a while. It did get to a point to where, you said CEO. I mean, in a business my size, you're all the C's, right? The C-suite, I'm sitting in it and it's on the first floor. But to run a business properly, I definitely recognized I couldn't do that and still train 12 client dogs all the time. It's just impossible. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't realize that. And there's a short-sightedness there. And some people maybe just really love dog training. And I do too. And if it's your one passion and you want to just train dogs forever, then great, right? It's just, if you want to build your business, it's very difficult if you're in the field, because dog training is very demanding. It's a lot of time, and taking care of kennels is demanding. And so I opted to go the route that allowed me to do what I think is best for a few things. Number one, my family. I get to spend a lot more time with my kids. I'm not going to get these years back, and my kids are not going to grow up and say, I think my dad probably preferred the dogs to us, right? They're never going to be able to say that, because I spend so much time with them. Number two, for Southern Oak Kennels, we can service a lot more people in a much more meaningful way when it's not just me. It was hard for me to let go of that, truthfully. It was hard for me to say, well, I don't have to be the one, right? It was difficult. I wanted to be the one that trained the dogs, right? You get the glory, but I ended up, you know what I'm saying? So to give some of that away, to give some of that away, I gave it up to these guys, and I have guys that work for me that are way better than me. Like Wally, that dude can train a dog. Noah Parsons, the only American to ever make up a British field trial champion. Yeah, I mean, those guys. Those are the guys I call when I'm like, hey, I can't figure this out with this dog. Well, so for Southern Oak Kennels, for us to be more impactful and have a wider reach that was still deep, I had to kind of get out of the way. And so, yeah, I recognize that. I still love training dogs, and I catch a lot of heat used to at least catch a lot of heat on social media. You know me, I kind of own it. I'm like, I'm not a dog trainer, I'm just a boat driver. I just kind of make jokes out of it, but I definitely made those decisions to hopefully do what's best for my family and our business. And yeah, it's been fun so far.
Barton, that's always been my philosophy in business. I worked in oil companies for a long time as, land manager, director of land, whatever. But anyway, I'd always told people my talent was finding people smarter than me that made me look good. And yeah, my ego didn't bother me. If I hired somebody who's way smarter than me and could probably take my job tomorrow, I didn't care. I'd rather have, but no, I think you've done a great job. And I don't know Wally, but I know Noah and Stone, and I have high regard for both of them.
Yeah.
You all also, I know you're known heavily for supplying hunters with waterfowl retrievers, but and upland too, which one of your dogs is doing upland today in South Dakota that I own. But don't you guys also, you provide service dogs and stuff like that too? I mean, your customer base is not just hunters, correct?
No, you're right.
What percentage would you say are hunters? And then kind of give me the breakdown.
Well, like 85% of statistics are made up on the spot.
Yes. Okay.
So if I had to guess, I'd say over 80% of our dogs go to waterfowl homes. Okay. As far as true service dogs, I'd say 5%, maybe a little less. We enjoy doing that. And there are some weird, like we have two who are avalanche search and rescue dogs. Shout out to you guys. We have two who they find old bones and bone fragments for historical archives, which is insane. Like they'll hunt 2 acres to find like a tooth, and they're trying to find these old cemeteries. That one's a weird one. They're in California. A lot of PTSD service dogs, a lot of those. We've trained Stone and Noah trained a whole litter of dogs for a veterans organization that ended up, I think 7 of the 8 passed, which was cool. That's rare. Yeah. The thing I don't like about the service dog industry is the failure rate. It's insane. You take 10 dogs into a service dog program, less than 5 are going to be service dogs. It's just such high expectation.
Okay.
There's just not room for error, right? You take a dog out duck hunting and they got a couple quirks, you can work around it. If you're wheelchair bound and you drop something and you have severe anxiety and the dog fails to pick it up for you, that's unacceptable, right? It might even be as such a deal as the people that needed this dog needed a dog that was a minimum of, let's say, 23 inches tall, and this one's only 21 inches tall. I mean, all the health stuff has to be perfect. So, yeah, it's the service dog industry kind of scares me a little bit because of the demands. And I have a couple people, Lauren Hogan, I have some friends that have bought service dogs from me, and they're super understanding. Like, they know some are going to be good, some are not. I do think that British Labs are a perfect personality for a ton of service dog work. So smart, intelligent, social, bold, but not always keyed up, right? The off switch is important. And then honestly, we do have a lot of dogs that, I say a lot, we have dogs that just go to be like a family dog. I can think of several. Like Noah did obedience with the dog for a family in California. They've got a CrossFit gym. Dog hangs out at the CrossFit gym all day. They hike, they cross country ski, and the dog's just like, they do like the active lifestyle stuff. Yeah. So not to, I don't want to be a trash talker, but there are some kennels that do like I don't know what they call it, like adventure dog program. And I always kind of laugh. I'm like, oh, you just mean being a Labrador?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have several that go and, mountain bike trails, and Labradors are great for that. I do tell people often, hey, I don't think we're a good fit. When you call me and you're like, hey, I live in a condo in DC and we've got a local park that's 2 miles away, and I think I might want a Labrador. I'm like, I just don't think that's the right fit for us. But for the most part, if you don't hunt, we don't. I'd rather most of my dogs go to hunting homes, but we definitely don't mind when it's a family dog.
That's interesting. So, well, that's a good breakdown. That's kind of what I expected. And then, do you have, Barton, when I went up north and where I pheasant hunt and where Maverick is right now, my SOK dog. That's that whole region of like the Hurons, South Dakota, all that area, East South Dakota. They use retrievers for pheasant, not Brittany's. And like it's the majority. Matter of fact, at the farm, that lodge that Maverick's at, there's 10 guides. I think there's 100 dogs that they use all day, every day, and 90 of them are labs. Yeah. So I'm going. The reason I'm rambling is: do you sell any to guys that are strictly straight up upland guys, or is it because of your geographic location that everybody is?
Well, we do, especially out of like Noah's kennel in Kansas, and I don't mind that at all. I think it's great. In the UK, most of the field trial work is upland anyway. You don't see a ton. They don't shoot ducks like we do. They shoot ducks, but it's not like us. I mean, let me backtrack. There is some wild fowling, and they use Labradors, which is super cool, but they don't run trials there. You wouldn't be able to any more than you could run a trial on a duck hunt here. So the game that they're shooting on the estates for trials, that's usually raised pheasants, chukar, some wild grouse, rabbits. I think it's great. I think using them for upland is phenomenal. I would say of the 80% that are hunting dogs that we sell, not a majority, but a lot of those do upland as well as waterfowl. Less are just upland dogs. If I'm being brutally honest, I think Springer Spaniels are much better pheasant dogs than Labradors.
Really? Because that was your first hunting dog, if I recall.
Yes, right? and I just mean the quarter and flush part. And I think they have a better nose. I think they can hunt cover better. They can tear it to shreds. They're smaller. They can get in and out of it. If I were going to have a lab to do pheasants, I would want like a 45-pound female, like the smallest I could find. Yeah. And like Maverick's a great example. He's not a very big dog.
No, perfect.
What's he, 60 pounds, 55, 60?
Max. He ranges between 55 and 60.
And he's athletic and can cut. Yeah. But you get these big labs out there, and I think they're just more prone to injury in that environment on a quarter and flush. I just think Springers that's what they're bred to do. And a pheasant retrieve is rarely going to be a hard retrieve. It's usually you're shooting within gun range, right? It's just rarely you're going to sail one super far. So I like springers for that world a little better. But if you wanted, and this is something Mark Harefield and I used to argue about all the time, if you want to do both, for sure get a Labrador. They are without a doubt the most versatile. Now, I don't mean versatile when it comes to things like pointing. I don't believe Labradors should point. I think if they point, they've been bred with something that also pointed in way back when. That's fine. Whatever. Let's just be honest about it, right? I don't think they're bred to. I don't think naturally they came out pointing any more than they came out silver. Something happened there. But as far as just non-slip retriever work, quarter and flush, and like shed hunting, you're not going to have anything that's more versatile than a Labrador. And the reason being is Labradors and Chesapeake Bay Retrievers are the only two that can truly handle the elements. You saw our hunts last year. I mean, when that cold front came through, man, I was in Kansas. It was 5 degrees Fahrenheit. We're hunting a river with flow, and Rio and moose on one day and cedar and Aussie on the next day. I mean, they were icicles, right? I mean, I'm drying them off with a ShamWow between retrieves. And, man, they never skipped a beat. I mean, they like – I remember specifically drying off moose, and the boy started calling, and he ducked under the towel to get around me to mark and see where the birds were. I mean, he's like, I'm ready. And a Springer would probably have that attitude, or a Golden or a Brittany, a GSP with no fur. Those dogs are going to freeze in that water. They've got about a few good retrieves, and then they can't, having a double coat and an oily coat and the ability to shake it off. And I mean, truly you can feel under their fur where their skin is, and it's bone dry. And that's, no, the other dogs can't do that. So that's why I think they are the preferred breed for, being versatile.
I definitely agree with that. I went on a Sand Hill crane hunt last year, and it was just bitter cold in the teens. This is in Lubbock, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And the water was just ice and broken up, and those dogs were just all day. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And those Sand Hill cranes are huge, and they were
massive,
carrying those like it was a dove.
Dinosaurs, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's a crazy bird. I've hunted them a few times, and I've used dogs every time. And my rule is just like, hey, you for sure got to know that the dog is dead or the bird is dead.
Yeah.
The crane's got to be dead. And I made the mistake of sending Bruno on one that was shot a long ways off. And it was funny. I didn't have the rec specs, although I should have. And when he came back, that bird was very alive, and it bit Bruno in the ear and was just holding on to his ear. And I was like, please hold on to that and don't go after his eyeballs.
His eyes.
Yeah.
Because that's like the first thing.
He was running back to me a little faster than he normally does. I was like, man, he's in a hurry. And that eventually he was getting an ear pinch the whole way back.
Since I'm I'm very thankful that you called me when you were starting, Cornerstone, and I'm a founder. I'm one of the founding members. I don't know if you realize that, but
I don't think I did realize that.
It was such a bargain that I was like, I stole it, and at the time I was I've been such a big fan of yours. I just did it, and I was like, I don't really need that, but sure. I did it because of you, and thank God that I did that, because I've used that thing so much that it's insane.
Sure. It's a lifetime membership, right? So you didn't necessarily need it then, and now you're at a point where you can use it with your pup and all that.
Yes. Which also, how it is, Barton, when you think you know everything, you get humbled real quick. And I learned so much. I mean, here I am, 56 years old. I've called Josh for training advice on a dog that it was a protection dog I was working on. But anyway, tell our listeners about Cornerstone. I know I just had Josh on here, and he's went into some about it, but to me, it's a great thing. I'm obviously sold lock, stock, and barrel, but talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I listened to the podcast with Josh, and so I know he did a great job explaining a lot of the ins and outs of it.
So I guess especially
with Violet, but there are a few things that, from my perspective, Josh and Keith had that history with they paid a guy to train a dog and it didn't go like they planned and they invested all this money. And then Keith's like, we'll just train it ourselves. And then Josh is like, how do you do that? And so then they're trying to learn, which is such like a common journey. Like just how many people have experienced that? And they really did start learning. And God, there's a lot that could be said about the British Field Trial Society of America too. He mentioned that. And that's back in the day when I sold them an Earl and Angie pup. And then I sold them Earl and they kind of had Cornerstone retrievers going. And, we've joked about it. I've said it on a lot of podcasts. Now it's actually much funnier to say because Josh Parvin is one of the best communicators I know. Like he's on a podcast, on a video series. He's phenomenal. I had a front row seat to watching that develop because when he started, Keith was about to kill him because he would turn the camera on. He would rehearse something, turn the camera on and he couldn't talk. And, which is so insane to think about because he's so talented at it now.
Yeah.
So good at it. And so, yeah. And I love Josh and Keith. It's so fun because it's like we get along so well. The Lord has really blessed our partnership together and our relationship dynamic, but those guys get along well as a father and son. I hope Noah and I can be like them when we're older. They have a great relationship, but they're a father and son. So they'll get into it, and they called me and Keith's like, I got this idea and we're trying to get it off the ground and it's just not going. We just think we're missing something. We won't know if you want to be a part of it. And I was like, absolutely. I had already kind of had the idea with a friend of mine to do something similar. So we started Cornerstone, started filming, and God, it was really fun to do. We kind of knew we were doing something like cutting edge, not training dogs. We're not reinventing the wheel. Dogs have been being trained to pick up birds for a long time. You can hone in and develop kind of a style, but we're not creating any new way to train these dogs, right? Like this has been around, but giving people access to it in a way that's meaningful in 2017 to now, that had not been done. I mean, there were YouTube videos and there were some people that came along right after us to do very similar things that we had done with Cornerstone, but being the first ones to say, hey, we're not only going to make it online, we're going to put it in an app where everyone's on their smartphone all the time. And people would come pick up puppies like around the time that you bought, Pace, Chase. Around that time, people would buy these dogs and then they would say, you got any books you recommend or you have any DVDs you recommend? And I would recommend a couple books, maybe a couple DVDs, but then I would think that, to be honest, my generation, they're probably not going to read it, any books, unfortunately. And then I tell everyone the only DVD player that I had at that time was in my wife's Suburban. That was it. So if I wanted to watch, I remember sitting in my wife's car in the driveway watching the IGL video from 2017, Paul French videos, because it was the only DVD player I had. So like to put it online just made so much more sense, and to make it a one-stop shop. That's really what we're still trying to do. I just got an email earlier from Retriever Training Supply. That's our other company. That's part of, Cornerstone, that's underneath us, right? We're kind of an umbrella parent company of that. And I got an email for, we're selling Mo Marsh. I love those guys. We got a product of the day email going out, which is a spotlight product.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is so cool. Like I want a spot. This is what we've been trying to create. And kudos to Keith and Josh for so many great ideas. Look, they're the brain power. They keep it running. For a long time, I was just the face in front of everybody, and I still push it, and I love doing training videos. We've got some stuff we're about to do that's going to be phenomenal. But those guys, they're like you pull the curtain back and you got the crazy machines going back there, and they're running all that, and they're so good at it. And having a one-stop shop, like, all right, I bought a lab. What do I do? Well, we got a module on Vet Talk with Lee Payne. We've got all the puppy stuff, which I think no one has anything close to what we've done with puppies on there as far as the foundations of building a retriever. And then we've got everything from 52 plus where you can follow along with Josh and a very frustrating dog who is not easy to train, right? And she was not easy. We didn't just go cherry pick the easiest dog. Josh got stuck with a dog that a lot of people would have said, I don't think I'm going to make it to the end. And the pressure was on for him, for his brand new wife at the time, to go film this dog. And they did it. They got her there. And then with the complete, we filmed every aspect of retriever training, basic and advanced obedience, basic, intermediate, and advanced gun dog work, and then maintenance, which I sent an email out today on maintenance and how important that is. And then you've got a place where you can go buy your supplies now. We're just trying to make it where, hey, what do I need to do as a retriever owner? Okay, here, just get this and everything you need to learn, to know, to purchase. It's all right here in one spot. And that's been a really fun journey.
Well, first of all, I'll comment. The three of you guys are a perfect combination because you all are so different in ways and you bring something to the table. I think it's the perfect trio. But, in the grand scheme of things, the program is a steal for the cost. Just because, if you pay a pro trainer, and I have, you spend that in a month or two, and I can tell the listeners, I've used this. It's on my phone. I've got three young puppies right now. Well, 3 12-week-old puppies that I'm working with. And I don't know what I do with it. I still use it. And I've been fooling with dogs since I was a kid. So, yeah.
I appreciate that.
And the retriever training supply. Y'all have got a lot of good stuff on there. I know, gosh, I remember, Barton, I was buying those neoprene leashes from you back in the day before you had retriever supplied, and you were getting them from somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amish guy, super nice guy. I found the guy. They were trying to keep him secret. I found him through a friend who did some roofing work with the guys and saw the leashes. At the time, they had only been making them for Wild Rose. Oh. And I had bought some from Mike. And I was like, man, I love these leashes. But there were some things about the Wild Rose ones that I didn't like. So I actually had them change it. The Wild Rose ones had like little, they were textured, like they had little bumps on them. They were like ribbed so you could get a better grip, which I understood, but they got so dirty, like built up in there. So I wanted just straight nylon or whatever that stuff is. I don't even know what it is. Rubber, nylon, whatever. So I went out and met the guy, and dude, he had rolls of that stuff. I mean, hundreds of feet, every color imaginable. And at that time, they weren't even doing rivets. They were sewing the loops, the loop end shut. And so I specified my sizes and ordered them by the dozens. And
there was once, Barton, you had a shortage. Like I was like, man, I need another leash. And it took you a while to find me one or get one.
Yeah. The guy would just, he's Amish, dude. He would go MIA. It's like, I can't call him. It's the crazy side note. Through that, my wife met some of the people that lived out there, and we had just had Miriam, my third born, and this is 2015. So around about the time that you and I had talked and gotten dogs. So my wife ended up meeting them, and through this place where she counseled at a pregnancy clinic, found out that there was a lady out there. Her brother-in-law was the one that was making the leashes. And her husband made leather products like saddles and stuff. They all work together. They're like so creative, and like craftsmanship is next level. And this lady had, I don't know the exact number, but it was like her 7th or 8th or maybe 9th child. And she was having problems producing enough milk to feed this baby. And we were in the opposite boat, dude. I had a freezer full of breast milk back in the day. We're like, hey, this stuff is like liquid gold, and we're not having to buy formula. And my wife will share the story. She would not be upset with me sharing this, but with the third child, the production was high. So I'm storing this stuff. I'm like, we need room in this freezer. So I had just started working with some friends I had made at Yeti coolers. And they ended up sending me a Yeti to fill up, and I took it to this lady. Or actually, Bethany took it to this lady. I did not want anything to do with communicating about the breast milk with this lady. So.
This must be the craziest bartering story I've ever heard.
It ended up just like I just had a better relationship with the guys. I didn't charge them anything for it. Bethany was like, this is, I don't know. I don't know the rules on selling
Like
breast milk
USDA,
on the black market.
yeah.
I don't know. If somehow they figured out a way to make it illegal for us to just drink raw milk nowadays and sell it, then I'm sure that breast milk's not, sellable either. But I was like, yeah, Bethany ended up helping them because they don't have a refrigerator. Like they can't keep it. So we would like fill up a cooler of ice and this stuff. And then she would be like, how many days do you think this will last? Okay, well, in 10 days, I'll bring you some more. And she would. And she did that for like several months. It's pretty cool.
That is crazy. I've never heard of that. That
It's one of the
makes
weirdest
sense.
rabbits I've chased on a podcast. So
I'll never have topped that. No.
Yeah.
But that is crazy. No. So did you all end up hiring this guy, or did you buy his business, or how did that evolve?
No, I mean, that guy just kind of, he quit making them or something happened.
Okay.
Like we just didn't order from him anymore. And then when Keith and Josh and I made the decision to pull the trigger on the real duck, on the dummies, which I know you guys talked about. Well, then we had all the manufacturing equipment to make the leashes, but to make them much better. So we made them different. We used rivets and changed the design, the lengths, the collars, and then did the quick tabs, the smaller, just steady tabs.
Yes. Yeah.
So they took all that over and started making those alongside with the fire hose dummies, which they made a lot of improvements to those too. Goodness, they're phenomenal. That's my favorite product.
When I came to I actually, as far as got to come to your house and hang out with, you were having like a training day. Mm-hmm. And this was not the place you're at now. I think it was the place you were at before. I keep reminding to get next to this microphone. So, that wasn't the British stuff, was it? It was just a training day, like back in 2017.
That would have probably been a training day. Okay. Yeah.
There's quite
at
a bit
that point,
of people.
The British Field Trial Society of America was sort of shutting down.
Okay.
Around then. I did host 3 field trials at some training ground in I guess Saltillo, really close to where I live right now. Okay. And that was super fun. We hosted a bunch of them on the grounds over in Alabama where Cornerstone member weekends are. Not the one where you went to, but the ones up on the hilltop where it's really hilly. And they were really fun. I used to and still do host a lot of just weekend training days. Don and Wally do this a bunch up in Michigan. Their grounds are unreal. They do it, I think, every Thursday night. They have people come train, which is awesome. So, probably just a training day. And I think that was at my Okolona house, most likely. In 2017, that's when we lived there.
Okay. I'm about positive that's when I was down there. What's next for Southern Oak Kennels?
Oh gosh, I got this new stud dog. Stoked about him. This will be the biggest dog as far as like reputation, and just rapport. Popularity is a weird word, but like the biggest few dogs I've brought over. The first one would be Apache Joe. That was a big deal. Everybody loved that dog. I've got 2 of his daughters here. One of them's only 12 weeks old. We used a frozen straw.
Oh,
yeah. She's literally in my shop experiencing the second day away from any of her siblings and in a crate by herself.
Yeah.
She has not stopped.
I bet.
Surprise. Yeah. If I open the window, you'd hear. Still thinking of a name for her. I've got another one of his daughters, Lucy, who just had a litter of puppies out of Rio. Apache Joe was a big deal. He was like, to my knowledge, one of the first bona fide field trial champions. He was a UK and Irish champion. He was top dog at multiple game fair events. He came over. That was a big deal. And then Tweed Shot Trimble of Lettergreen, Quinn, who was Pace's dad, came over. And I love that dog. He was a huge deal. And he was an Irish Retriever Championship winner. So he had won the Irish Championship. Not only that, a lot of people don't know, the year before he got third. The year before that, he got 4th or 3rd. And the year before that, he got a certificate of merit. So he had finished it 4 years in a row. Really consistent, really nice dog. Not the best producer, though. We had some really good puppies out of him, but we had some health issues out of him. So I retired him really early. And then the next biggest after that was probably Eastdale Kane. Kane was a huge deal because he was an English field trial champion. made some phenomenal puppies. Really love Cane Dog. He passed away. Quinn passed. Actually, all those dogs are passed away. But then, by far, my biggest achievement as an importer of dogs was bringing over Moose. I've had some really nice dogs. I have some nice dogs. I mean, I've got 2 champions out here now with Ozzy and Moose. But man, Laura is such a dear friend of mine. Stauntonville that's a legendary operation that she has in England. What she's accomplished is truly spectacular. I did a podcast with her. I don't know if you listened to that one or not.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like I was listening to NPR England.
Yeah, to have 9
champions.
Awesome. I remember getting Moose at the airport and I had him on a slip lead and I just kind of had my arm around him and I was like, I cannot believe this dog is in America. I cannot believe it. And he's my buddy. I love him to death. I was loving on him last night here in the lodge.
You actually suggested I read her book, and that was a great suggestion, by the way.
It's a great book. Great. She got a new one. I've read it. I think they made some edits, but it's out. It's phenomenal. If you're going to read books,
I actually read. I'm old. So
if you're going to read a book on retriever training, Laura is one of the smartest human beings, not just in retriever training, but just in general. She's incredibly intelligent. And shout out to Derek. Moose is Derek's dog. So I got Moose, and Laura gets a lot of the credit, but Derek's my man. Can't wait to have him.
You think
they'll be here? I'm not announcing a time yet, but they're coming over to do some seminars here at my place. So I'll be sure to let you know.
Yes,
I don't want to make the dates public yet.
Okay. Do you feel like this new acquisition will be your best? I know it's hard to quantify.
This is still probably going to be the most prestigious dog. That's probably the word I was looking for earlier.
Okay.
This one will be – it is insane to get a field trial champion at the age of 4. He's only 4.5. And he's double qualified this past year for the IGL. He has won a lot. His health and his pedigree are really good. So he's the son of a really nice producing field trial champion that Lee had over there, and then he's Lee Hardis, and then his mom is out of Copper Birch Patio Leadburn, which is a dog that I really like in my kennel. Going back to where we started, like that line, Leadburn lines in general. I've got a new field trial winner that I have not announced to anyone yet in my kennel right now. I just picked him up. His name's Fletcher. And he's like Red. Remember my dog Red? He's like a lighter version of Red as far as the color, but he's got that same, like when he comes back, you're like, how are you running faster all of a sudden? Like he's just got it. Well, you look back at his pedigree and it's like, oh, there it is. Like the Leadburn lineage, they're athletes. There's a lot. Leadburn Earl was the same way. Like, there's this way they run. We get into the nitty gritty of it. There's this way that they run where the back end of the dog gets really low to the ground and those back legs are driving so hard. And I can see that and I can tell you a list of 10 dogs and 3 of the 10 are going to be within the first 3 generations of that pedigree. You can just see the way they run, right? Now, I might be wrong on that. You can call BS or whatever, but typically I can also see the way a dog, like I can tell you a moose pup when you let it out of the kennel. When you let it out of the kennel and the way it turns back toward its owner and bounces around, there's a certain way they move. It's just moose pups. That's what they do. So anyway, this new dog has got some of that blood in it, where that athleticism, and I think it'd be a huge deal. For us, it's like at 4.5, the hope is you've got 6 good years of infusing those genetics into, here in the USA from a true champion. I'm going to keep importing dogs for Southern Oak Kennels until the Lord shuts that door. I do not want to create a line of SOK dogs per se. I've explained that.
I heard you talk about that on the podcast, Barton, and I get it, but elaborate on that for the listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We have like Rip, who's out of Hank.
I got a Rip girl right now.
Dixie. Yeah.
She's a fireball. She's 14. I named her Abby. She super smart.
Yeah. Like that's a line that I'm good continuing for a generation, right? I would not keep a pup out of Rip as a stud dog in the future, because now we're 2 generations removed from the UK. Technically, Hank was actually imported, but he was imported at 8 weeks, and he's out of Quinn. and a field trial winner named Bess or Diver, Ben Raw Bess. Sorry, I won't nerd out on the pedigrees anymore, but
No, I love it.
And I explain this, if you're listening to this, not to plug my own stuff, but the podcasts that I did with Chris Rudd, we go way in the weeds on this. And for me, like I prefer the style of evaluation in the United Kingdom over the style of evaluation in America.
And you're doing that because of the hunting instincts.
Yeah, for so many reasons.
Assessment.
Correct. I think the things that they assess are just, and listen, if you're like a college administration program and you've got these kids that have taken the ACT and you got these kids that have taken the SAT, it could, based on your college, you might say, hey, I really prefer a high SAT score versus an ACT score. And you got to really get in the weeds to see even what the difference is, right?
Yeah.
Or you may say, we don't really want either of those. We want to see this particular test, whatever that is. Well, with field trials and hunt tests, and like shout out to my friend Clark Kennington. He's running the Master National right now, and tough test, right? Like if your dog passes the Master National, it's a heck of a dog. But there are some things that aren't evaluated. And in the UK, those things are evaluated. And some of the things that are evaluated in the Master National or the Grand are super, super cool, but I don't necessarily care when it comes to having a really nice hunting dog. So I appreciate them. I have a massive level of respect for those dogs. And we now have a few. Blake's dog, Rose, is coming here. Hank and Callie pup coming here to be bred to Aussie. And she's a Grand Hunt Retriever champion. She's the first SOK Grand Hunt Retriever champion. One of the nicest dogs you'll ever see. Just insane. But as far as creating a style of dogs, I really prefer the type of dog that's in the UK that's past their system of evaluation. So you look at a pedigree, you say, hey, this is a good pedigree. What do you mean by that? Well, even if it's coon dogs, what you mean is parents, grandparents, and so forth have done something, right? They've done something, whatever that is. And we can do it so quickly with dogs because you can have a 10-generation pedigree that's all lived within our lifetime, right? And then you breed them at 2 to 6 years old. So it's not like us where to look at my pedigree within a few generations, you're back you're at Civil War days, it goes back so long you can see culturally these dogs so much faster. And so I want to consistently produce dogs who have the traits that are being evaluated in the UK. The only two ways that I think I can do that is by bringing over dogs who have titles from the UK or their immediate parents have titles from the UK, or creating some type of system of evaluation in America that mirrors what they do in the UK. That's very difficult to do. If you're listening to this and you have a lot of money and you want to do something like that, call me. I would love to do it. There have been a few people want to start it. It's just the funds that it's going to take are insane because it's an expensive sport. It's not like, you have to have the birds, the grounds. You can't do it in a cheap way and do it in a way that actually looks like what they do over there. So because of the way they do it over there, that's the style of dog I want. So I'm going to keep importing. All of the Southern Oak Kennel campuses were organic. None of them were planned. All of them happened naturally. So I don't have any plans on expanding Southern Oak Kennels, but I really never did. So I'm not going to say we won't do it. But yeah, for me, it's just continue to develop our team, make sure my guys have what they need. And hopefully what I really want to do is continue to build the legacy. We're at the point now where we're selling a lot of people their second dog after the first ones have gotten older. I want to sell their grandkids dogs. I want to continue to build a reputation that's like, hey, we're never going to get a dog from anywhere else. That's my goal.
Barton, if you remember this, but I just hit me when you said that back in 16 or 17, I had about 883 acres in Kentucky, up in northern Kentucky. I'm from southeast Kentucky. And I said, hey, we should franchise. I had a lot of property. And then, later on, you actually did that. But I know you had no plans at that time. Question. So, well, first, I'll preface this question. I'm going to the IGL this year.
Yeah, perfect.
So hopefully you'll be there.
Maybe.
You don't
it's
know? Okay.
definitely on my list of possibilities.
Okay.
It's super fun. It's down south this year, isn't it? It's in the south.
Yes, because I had to look all that up, but I'll pick your brain at a later time about that. But I just, how it is in the dog trial, horse trial, whatever trial world, stuff's political. Do you feel like that in the UK, their trial system, and I'm not trying to start a controversy, I'm just curious, do you feel like that when you see a field trial winner on a pedigree, that you're truly getting the real deal, that it's not been, when my brother was the judge? You know what I'm getting at? I mean, do you feel like it is a true and fair assessment, or is there politics involved like anywhere else?
Definitely both.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want,
and I'm not trying
to make any enemies, but
right. Okay. But you probably know where to look.
Correct. And it is not easy to have an open dog, meaning it's not easy to have a dog who has won and is now running opens. All right. In the bulk of places, if your dog wins a novice stake, I know what that means. That you can't win without the skills, right? But what were the other dogs like? You could have had some really poor competition that day. You could have been maybe gifted a win. You could have been given easier retrieves. There are definitely politics that play into it. Definitely not going to call anyone specifically out. There are some regions. I gotta be really careful here. There are some regions.
Sorry, man.
No, it's fine. There are some regions that say that you could be running a field trial in a particular place on the same day that most of the really good dogs are running a trial as well in that particular place, just a bit north under a different set of rules. And I've seen that happen a lot. So a dog's won a trial and it's like, oh, well, but to win a novice stake, you're running against novice dogs. That's more or less making dogs up if you need a couple wins or some points, just a big hint of where that is. You can make it happen. So I wouldn't just blindly buy a dog that's a winner. And there is a massive difference between being like this new stud I have, Fletcher, phenomenal dog. He's a novice stake winner from Northern Scotland. The gap between a novice stake winner and a field trial champion in Scotland is a big gap. I appreciate the field trial winner title for sure. It's not an official title, but like it's a great accomplishment. And he's actually got 3 awards in other trials. So there's consistency there, right? That's cool. That's important for me. But I still need someone to say, yeah, watch that dog. I saw him. Here's what I saw.
And see, that just all goes back to what I said earlier. That's why I feel confident when I've gotten stuff from you, because you've got an insight that somebody like me wants to. Oh, I might buy a dog from so and so in England or Ireland or wherever. I don't really know what I'm getting unless I can do that kind of research.
Yeah,
correct. Probably.
Yeah. So you could, and I mean, you want to, there's a lot that goes into it. You'll have fun at the IGL. I don't think I'm going to go to that IGL this year, not because it's a bad one to go to, but I like walk up, and that one's going to have a lot of driven, which will probably actually be better for the viewing. You'll probably hopefully have a really good view. And the IGL is a fun place to shake a bunch of hands and see a bunch of dogs at once. And everyone that wants to get into this needs to go watch the IGL at least once or twice. I got really fortunate. The place I went and saw it was a lot of dogs I knew were running, and it was one of my favorite estates in the UK the year that I went. So I got to watch them run on the golf course and all that. Super fun. But you don't get to see you don't get to see a lot of up and coming dogs, or that you might see at a novice stake or running their first ever opens. I mean, to be honest, I've seen a lot of dogs go out at a trial on a bird, and I've left very impressed by that dog. Right. The reason the dog went out was just bad luck or something like that. But I've been like, hey, I'm keeping an eye on that dog.
So, yeah.
I bought a dog one time from a guy because the dog absolutely just, pardon my French, but just shit the bed in the trial. Like, it was rough, not good. Yeah. And I was like, that's a really nice dog. I saw exactly what happened. It was handler error. The dude was super frustrated. And I was like, hey, if you ever want to sell that dog, I'll buy it. And dude sold me the dog. Yeah.
Nice. No, and see, that's great too. But I'm really just going there, Barton, honestly, just to learn, watch it. But I really hope to do some podcasts, and maybe we'll talk later. Maybe you got some people I can talk to. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
it's different. It's different getting those folks to commit. But yeah, you can definitely do it.
Yeah, and I've actually talked to a few people. So through social media, there's a group over there that they do springers and cockers, and they're gonna do a podcast with me because like I said, I'm gonna have all different breeds on here. So
that'll be amazing.
But yeah. Well, anyway, Barton, I've taken a lot of your time. I'm so honored that you took time out of your crazy busy schedule. I always hate texting you, man, because I know that you're covered up, and I'm real bad to random text stupid stuff like whatever. But
dude, it's good. I want to say a couple quick things. First of all, I'm stoked you're doing this. I think you're gonna hopefully have a broad audience that can bring some people together. And I've said it a lot of times. If you're into gun dogs, no matter what you're hunting, your enemy is not the people who do gun dogs differently than you. The only enemy you might have is the people that hope that we never get to hunt with dogs again, right? I mean, we really should be working together to continue to be able to do this. So the other thing I'd like to say is, I've known you for a long time. You've had some really nice dogs, and I want to put a little connector out there. If you're listening to this and you're a Southern Oak guy and you have a puppy out of Jet or Chase, it's because of Ken. Yeah. I sold Chase to you as an imported pup, and I sold Jet to you as one of our pups out of Snoop and Allie, which is probably one of the best pedigrees I'd ever put together at that point.
Let me say this, pause, but because I want you to finish. So I was researching your site, and I knew Snoop because I'd had a Snoop dog, and not the Snoop dog. But no, so you had just imported this female, or you just got this female, and you had all this write up on her. And I was looking at everything you said, and I started doing some research, and I think you even referred to that dog as, quote, the pedigree. I was like, man, this is going to be dangerous. So I was like, I paid a deposit a year in advance for the first big female. Remember, I was always
big female,
first big female. And I got that dog, and Jet May had more natural ability than any dog I've ever owned. She had more juice than any lab I've ever seen. And I was getting the ranch, and I was getting into a lot of blood tracking and stuff. And I was like, man, I'm not going to get to waterfowl hunt. I'm not going to get to do this. Barton, this dog's going to get wasted, and it's a shame to let her waste here. So you bought her back from me, and I knew what she was, and that was when she was still raw. Like you guys had to work. Yeah, and you had to work with her because I hadn't done a whole lot at that time. I was back in Midland, Texas, and anyway, what a dog. I'd give anything to have that dog over.
She was amazing. Lots of talent. Brad hunted with her a lot. Brad did. Man. And then Chase hunted with a client of ours a lot. Both of those dogs were incredibly talented. Both of them were very good producers. Chase is still alive. She lives with my daughter's best friend, right? Chase is a Frisbee. Jet passed away last year, and the people that had her just got another retiree. Lived a great life, had her litters and then slept on the couch and retrieved and hunted up till her last season. Pedigree-wise, both phenomenal. I mean, I've got a client who's got a Moose and Chase pup that is with George Moody running qualified all age, running white coat field trials.
Oh my gosh.
The Jet pedigree and Snoop is a Leadburn dog. That's the lines I'm talking about. So Snoop that's Billy Still Jr. got fourth in the IGL with Snoop and then won it with Snoop's son, Call Heartbreak Break is what they call him. That's his kennel name. They call him Call, Call, I think. Anyway, that's the line I'm talking about. And when you paired that with Allie, which was Waterford Ganton and international field trial champion Astragon Faith, that was the whole pedigree was red. And I bought her. My friend called me 3 times in the middle of the night from Scotland. I finally answered my phone. I was at a pastor's conference, like 3 a.m. I was like, "What do you want?" And he was like, "I need a yes or no on the thing I just texted you." And he had sent me her pedigree, a picture of her, and her price. Cheapest dog I ever imported.
Wow.
Yeah, but she had 0 health tests, so big risk. I ended up having her tested over there. I think she was 0 hips and elbows and clear eyes and all that. Anyway, That dog was, that's where Ashley came from, which is Prince and Allie, which that's the, one of the top moms we ever had at SOK Great Lakes. Then we had Snoop, we kept Jet from her. Anyway, those lines are super meaningful. All that to say, I appreciate you trusting us with those dogs back. A lot of people were impacted. They both had their 4 litters. They both had big litters, and a lot of people had pups from those dogs, which is super cool for us. Just cool to see that all kind of play back. And then you kind of came back around, and it took a while to get worked out exactly the direction that we all wanted to go, and hiccups along the road. But it's cool to see what you have now with Maverick, who's really awesome. And then with your pup, which is Rip and Phoenix, which is really awesome as well. So and Phoenix, again, that's a Cane pup, and a great granddaughter of Apache Joe, and all those lines back in there. So yeah.
I just sitting here thinking, Jed, I had her when I first got her from you. I was still in Kentucky. I'd been laid off, so I was up there for a year out of the oil field business, and turned her loose on the ranch, on the farm up there. Deers were just now shedding. She couldn't have been 4 months old. And shed hunts, she took off just all around the barn, came back 3 times with fresh sheds in her mouth. It was just anything she did, it was just amazing, natural.
Yep.
But Pace was like that too. And when I got Pace, he was already trained from you guys.
That's right.
And he found antlers just because he was watching my other dogs do it.
Yep.
So he started doing fine. But I never trained him to do that.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Anyway.
Pretty cool.
I sure have enjoyed them. Jet's one I wouldn't care to have back. But that's but
she's
I knew
one,
at the time.
She's one we would clone if we could.
Yeah.
There's a long list of them now, but she's definitely high up on that list.
Well, I'm so glad I got her back in your hands and she got to do what she should have. Because with me at that time, she wouldn't have got utilized to her full potential.
She was fun. She was the one, Brad had her and Allie,Ally, different Allie. Okay. And that was a Prince and Maggie, my Maggie. That was if Brad needed to show off 2 dogs, those are the 2 that got out, They were a lot of fun. So anyway. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you, man. I'm glad you're doing this.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And we'll be talking some more, and hopefully we'll get to cross paths here in person. And you've got to get out here at the ranch, bring your crew out. I'm at the ranch
on my
today.
list. It's definitely on my list. So
all right. Man. Bart, thank you so much. And I'll be promoting you throughout.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.